What is up, everybody? Welcome to the next installment of the World Cup preview series. As you can see, today we are talking about Wales to round out Group B. This is the second World Cup appearance for Wales. The other one came way back in 1958. To get to Qatar, they finished second in a group that included Belgium, Belarus, the Czech Republic, and Estonia. 4 wins, 3 draws, and a loss. That sent Wales to the UEFA World Cup playoff, where they defeated Austria and then Ukraine in what ended up being the final spot that was left to be determined in the World Cup, because Ukraine had to delay some of their games due to the war and the extenuating circumstances. So it wasn't supposed to be this way, but it ended up where Wales and Ukraine were playing for the final spot in this World Cup. Wales were able to get it thanks to the first player that needs to be discussed when you're talking about this Welsh team, and that is Gareth Bale. It was his free kick that ended up in the net to beat Ukraine and send Wales to this World Cup. He is the most capped player in the history of the Welsh men's national team. He is the team's all-time leading goal scorer. He is the most accomplished player to ever come out of Wales, based on all of the Champions League success at Real Madrid, the La Liga titles, what he did at Tottenham before he moved to Real Madrid. This is not prime Gareth Bale, of course. He is now playing for LAFC, went there sort of specifically because of the situation it provided him in terms of allowing him to ramp up to this World Cup, keep him fit and sharp, while also allowing him to stay healthy, because this is the moment he's been waiting for his entire career. Everything for this team starts with him. He is Wales. Wales is Gareth Bale. They are synonymous at this point. He's going to go down as the greatest player this country has ever produced. What makes this team interesting is there is some more help as opposed to previous editions of the Welsh team that Gareth Bale has tried to lead to a World Cup. Most notably, the second player I want to highlight, and that is Dan James. Dan James played more minutes than anybody on this team during qualifying, and he started every game at last summer's Euros. He got all the way to Manchester United, was kind of a role player, had a stretch where he was phenomenal. It was short-lived. Now he is at Leeds. He's an important part of that team. A very established Premier League player at this point. The kind of attacking options to complement Gareth Bale this team has not had in the past. He has cemented himself as one of the most indispensable players on this team. And the other guy still has to be Aaron Ramsey. He's right next to Bale in terms of the list of guys that are synonymous with this team over the last decade or so. Of course, longtime Arsenal player, has moved around. He's now on Team 3 in calendar year 2022 due to a loan and then a move again over the summer. He is in France with Nice, but he's 4 games away from getting into the top 4 of the most capped players in Welsh men's national team history, and he's currently 6th on the goal list. He's climbing both of these lists still. He was an indispensable part of last summer's Euros team. He still has a very important part to play here, even though, much like Bale, he is not the player he once was. He is not playing for a Big Six club in the Premier League, obviously, anymore. Club-wise, it has not gone well for him the past few seasons. But when he comes to Wales, Gareth Bale went through this at Real Madrid. Wasn't playing much at all. Plenty of criticism. When they put on that Welsh jersey, everything changes and they go right back to being the brilliant players they have for most of their career, no matter what's happening with their club situation. So you can't talk about this team without talking about those two guys. In terms of a breakout player, there are a couple options here, which is again part of why this Wales team was sort of able to get across the line and actually get to a World Cup after failing time after time after time, even as they started to qualify for Euros here as Gareth Bale developed into his prime. But the guy I'm going with is Neco Williams. Neco Williams just couldn't, for understandable reasons, get himself entrenched into that Liverpool team, his boyhood club, the club he came up the ranks playing for. So you get a loan move, and then this summer he makes the permanent move to Nottingham Forest. He is off to a really good start. He started 7 times during qualifying, 1 goal, 1 assist. There are fullbacks on this team that can actually give you goals and assists, which is an incredibly exciting proposition. He is still at the very, very beginning of his career. And you've seen in just the short time he's been at Nottingham Forest and what he did when he went on loan last season, what he can do when he gets regular playing time. Maybe he can't quite cut it at the highest level. But this decision he made to part ways with Liverpool and go somewhere permanently where he can cement himself and he knows there's playing time available is already paying dividends, and it comes at the perfect time from his national team career standpoint, because I fully expect him to play a huge role in this tournament. And so when you're talking about this from a breakout star standpoint, all of a sudden he's coming back to a place where he is already starting to solidify himself, and the conversation surrounding him is completely different because you're talking about him delivering, if this goes well, at both the club and international level in a way he just hasn't had the opportunity to before. A lot of that had just due to the fact that, he's barely 20, I think he's 21 now. He just hasn't had the time in his career yet, but this I very much feel like can be that potential sort of springboard turning point for him, where you look at Nico Williams before this World Cup, before this season, before this move to Nottingham Forest, and Nico Williams afterward, very differently. Assuming he plays the role I expected, he delivers the way he has for this Wales team during qualifying. The reason for optimism is very, very simple, and I mentioned it when Wales qualified. This team, perhaps more than any other in the world, is built for knockout tournaments. They are built to play this kind of competition. It is not an accident that they have qualified for 3 major tournaments, 1 World Cup, and 2 Euros in their history before qualifying for Qatar. And in all 3 of those tournaments, they got out of the group stage. You remember what they did 2 Euros ago. Last Euros didn't go so great. We're going to talk about that in a second. But they still got out of the group stage. And yes, they got out of the group stage in the 1958 World Cup too. That one, not putting as much stock in for this point, focusing more on the Euros. But what they have is this combination that is incredibly difficult to deal with, and like I said, lends itself to these kind of knockout competitions and sort of high stakes individual games. They are comfortable absorbing pressure. They don't need to have the ball to be able to dictate the terms of a game and feel like they are doing what they want to, because they prefer not to have the ball. But they also don't need the ball to be effective going forward and to be dangerous in attack, because they have Gareth Bale and Dan James and Brennan Johnson, who is another one of those rising stars coming off the bench potentially. They are lethal on the counter. This team is built to play on the counter. So it's very hard for a game to go wrong for them, assuming the defense holds up, because they are used to absorbing this pressure. They're used to having teams come at them for extended periods of time. It doesn't faze them. It doesn't mess with what they're trying to do. And when they get their 2 or 3 chances, they take them more times than not. The other part of this is you have game breakers. Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey still has the potential to do that. You've got a Dan James in there. You can go down the list of players who have contributed here. But specifically, this is about Bale. Whether it's a free kick, whether it's some of these goals you've seen him score with Real Madrid, even a couple he's had with LAFC, where he just turns the game on its head by himself. He can still do that even though he's sort of getting to the very, very end of his prime. That combination is something few teams have because they are pretty solid in defense. And so all of a sudden, they are this team that nothing can be going right in attack. They just don't give you very many opportunities. They make the game ugly. And then, much like happened to send them to the World Cup, up pops Gareth Bale to provide the decisive moment, that one moment of brilliance, and win them a game. And that is, when you're talking about underdog teams and teams that are going to have to perform above their talent level to make a run in this World Cup, that is exactly the combination you want. They can beat you multiple ways by defending for their lives, by Gareth Bale's brilliance, by on the counterattack if you're not fundamentally sound defensively. And they have that player who can be the best player on the field on any given day. I will say it again, it is not an accident what they have done in these last 2 Euros. And this is easily the best, most talented squad they're going to bring to one of these major tournaments. The concern for me, the big question is, and the difference between these last 2 Euros, what kind of help does Gareth Bale get? What does Aaron Ramsey provide? And more, perhaps importantly, what does the rest of the squad provide those two guys? Ramsey and Bale have combined for 5 of the 12 goals Wales have scored in these 2 European Championships. But if you remember, when they made that Cinderella run and finally got into a Euros, not this one that happened this last summer, but the one before that, Al Robson-Kanu delivered some crucial moments for them. Al Robson-Kanu, if I remember correctly, didn't even have he was out of contract at that point because it was the summer. He was a player without a team, and here he was delivering for Wales. You're not going to see that kind of situation because this team is better. But that was the difference between being able to get a couple rounds into the knockout stage and the disaster that was their attempt in the knockout round in the 2020 Euros that were played in 2021, where they got wrecked. They didn't get the help from these other players. From the Dan Jameses, the Brennan Johnsons, the Kiefer Moores, you go down the list. That is the concern here, and especially in this group, where Gareth Bale has an off day against Iran, or the defense doesn't hold up, you can lose that one. And then you're facing 2 teams that are just better than you from a pure talent perspective. So this is going to be a very difficult test. But the flip side to that is, I just look at this team, and to me, this screams going and finding a way to win a game they don't deserve against the U.S. and or England. Maybe Gareth Bale wins them a game against Iran, and all of a sudden they're causing chaos in this group and just turning things on its head. It's what they have done when they've gotten to these major tournaments. The difficult part for them has been, can you actually hold up all the way through qualifying being so reliant on such a small group of players? The depth, while it's improving, is simply not there. At least it hasn't been in the past. It's finally starting to reach the point where you're not just celebrating qualifying for a Euros. You're talking about, can we get back to a World Cup? Can we make a run at the Euros? And that's what they've been able to do. The easy part has been navigating it once they got there. Do they have the talent to win this whole thing? No. Especially with Gareth Bale at this point in his career. We'd be potentially having a conversation about them being a dark horse if you had Bale in his prime with this group of players. But Bale is obviously evolved and had to sort of change the way he plays to a certain degree as he's gotten older. So you're not getting anything close to peak Bale, which gives me pause in terms of, can they do damage and get to a semifinal or something like that. I don't see that happening. But if they can get out of the group stage, can they absolutely, or even if they, maybe it is in the group stage, but I just can't shake this feeling they're going to ruin somebody's World Cup because they are so comfortable in these environments where they're getting outplayed, they're getting outshot, and they just hang in there defensively and find that one moment to hit you on the counter, find that one moment from Gareth Bale, and all of a sudden you're down 1-0 and that's the final score. So maybe it happens in the group stage. If they can get out of a group, especially as that second team, if I'm the team that wins a group and has to play them, I want no part of it. Absolutely none. I will say it one more time as we're ending this video here. They have done this twice now. And then you saw them get through World Cup qualifying and qualify for the World Cup. How? A knockout tournament. That is 3 of them they have successfully navigated in the past handful of years. Look at what they've done in the Euros. Look where Euro 2020 went wrong. And look at their track record in this kind of competition. We'll see if they've got another magical run left in them. The talent, there is a significant talent gap when you're comparing them to the top 2 teams in this group. But in no way, shape, or form will I write them off. I've seen them do it too many times. And like I said, there is not a team that is able to elevate itself more, that is more set up for success in a tournament like a World Cup than Wales. It is awesome to have them back again. This is the first time since 1958 Gareth Bale is going to get his chance on the global stage. That is all we have for our Wales preview. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and also check out the written preview on Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com.